Morning, everybody. Hope you are having a great start to your morning on this weekend. Just got here a little bit early at the Dream Center, getting ready to hit Adopt-A-Block back up for the first time in 2021. I'm excited, if nothing, to just meet some new people and go clean up some trash, and God just use us as a city janitor to help make our community and neighborhood a little bit cleaner and a little bit brighter, and just see what God's going to do today. So it's like 9:30. Got some time. Figured I would do another daily chase here while I'm waiting on people to come drive on up and get here. So today's daily chase is titled "The Bump in the Road." David and his crew were trying to handle the holy presence and glory of God with human hands. How do you handle holiness and the glory of God? God will only let you do things your way just so far. This is going to be a good one today. I've heard it said that David's caravan hit a bump in the road at the threshing floor. Who put that bump in the road? That would be like God. He still has a way of putting speed bumps in the middle of the highway of man's reasoning. They force us to slow down and ask, is this the right thing? David's problems came when he and his troop tried to continue on as normal past God's speed bump. The Lord never intended for his glory to creak along on the back of man's mechanisms, vehicles, or programs. He has always ordained his glory to be transported by sanctified or set apart holy human vessels who reverence and respect his holiness. Abinadab's sons had spent up to 20 years around the ark. To them, it was an ornate but ordinary box or chest. They were probably honored when they were chosen to drive the cart carrying the ark, but neither one of those young men were prepared, and they didn't know about the ancient warnings concerning God's holiness. When David's procession came to God's holy shaking place in the road, the oxen stumbled, and Uzzah reached out to steady the ark. Uzzah's name literally means strength, boldness. So hear this. Uzzah, the name literally means strength, boldness, majesty, security. And you can look that up in the Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. So that's the meaning of the name Uzzah. Definition is found there. So the presence of God never needs the assistance or guidance of man's strength to hold its rightful place, nor will God ever allow the arm of flesh to glory in his presence without tasting death. God's glory broke out on the flesh that drew near to it in a living state, and Uzzah was instantly killed. Only dead men can see God's face, and only repentant dead flesh can touch his glory. I don't think any of us have seen the church function on the order of the church at Jerusalem in the book of Acts. The deaths of Ananias and Sapphira for lying to God, described in Acts chapter 5, verses 1 through 11, should be re-examined by the church today. The same Spirit is beginning to visit the church today, and his standards of holiness have not changed. When the glory of God descended on that young church, it brought fear on the people, but it also brought God's miracle-working power through signs and wonders, causing many to be added to the church. Why? Because the leaders who were submitted to God flowed in his power and authority. You have nothing to fear from Dad if you haven't done anything bad while Dad was gone. As soon as God's presence fell on us in small measures of glory, we began asking ourselves the same questions David must have asked himself when he saw how serious it was to be the stewards entrusted with God's manifest presence. We began to ask ourselves, should we really be the ones to take care of the sacred presence? I distinctly remember saying over and over, why me, Lord? David, the psalmist of the hills and the warrior of God, had suddenly discovered another facet of God's character that he had never seen before. Evidently, no one else in Israel had seen this side of God either. Sadly, neither has the church of today. David decided to cancel the trip to Jerusalem and pull aside to leave the presence he now feared at home of Obed-Edom in nearby Gath, formerly a Philistine stronghold. The ark stayed there for 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom, his family, and everything that he owned. Why did David stumble like the oxen pulling the cart? He was in shock. He had been doing everything he knew to do in the most respectable manner that he knew of. In fact, David's methods resemble the methods used by the Philistines years earlier to transport the ark into Israelite territory, according to 1 Samuel 6:7. He was dancing at the head of the procession and around the cart along with the rest of the people, while many played instruments and sang. He obviously believed that God would be pleased with his efforts that day. They were a happy little church, the procession that David's army bringing the ark back, taking the presence of God to the place where it belonged. Then they hit a holy bump in the road at the threshing floor of Nacon, a Hebrew word which ironically means prepared. They were obviously unprepared. When Uzzah casually reached out to steady God's box from falling off of a man's vehicle, God seemed to say, look, I've let you come this far in your own manner, but enough is enough. If you really want my presence back in Jerusalem, then you're going to have to do it my way. Then he struck down Uzzah right on the spot and stopped David's parade in its track. God broke out of his box and caused man's plans to fall that day, and it would take David 3 months to recover, repent, research, and return for God's glory. The same thing happens today when we encounter God's manifest glory. Too often we reach out in fleshly presumption to stop the God we've carefully contained in a box from falling off of our rickety, man-made ministry program or tradition. We shouldn't be surprised when God's glory breaks out of our doctrinal or traditional boxes and shocks us. Something always dies when God's glory encounters living flesh. This devotional today can kind of seem a little bit like, man, it makes you feel completely unholy and unworthy, and what's the point? And might as well not even try. But that is not the heart of God. I just wanted to close with literally, it is the point of being, and because you and I, we cannot love God. We cannot do all this right. Even when Jesus gave us his Sermon on the Mount, he basically demolished every attempt of man trying to be in right standing with God in his own attempts and his own strength. And so we have to be completely dependent upon God. And the moment that we get outside and we let either ego or pride or arrogance or anything seem to take over and remove us from a walk of humility, that's where he loves us enough to correct us and to stop us in our tracks, to prepare ahead of time a bump in the road to bring us back into where we need to be into right standing and continue forward. All right, hope you guys are encouraged. Chase after him today, and we will see you next time.